We've done over 600 patients now. Initially the idea was that this was primarily for patients who had no significant hiatal hernia or minimal. And the reason behind that was that we didn't really know exactly the contributing factor that the hiatus or the muscles of the diaphragm had on the valve component. And so if we just reconstructed the valve, that's very good, provided that the other mechanism is working okay as far as that diaphragm. And for patients that have that less than 2 centimeters, it allows that the barrier of the muscles of the diaphragm to actually impact that new valve. For patients that have a larger hiatal hernia, basically that involves trying to make those muscles a little bit more snug or reestablishing that kind of normal anatomical configuration. And that's typically done through 4 or 5 small little incisions and putting some stitches in the muscle of the diaphragm, just like any other hernia, to make that hole a little bit more snug or a little bit smaller. If you had to take your car in for its brakes, typically they'll tell you that you need to fix the pads and the rotors. If you're lucky enough to get away with just replacing the pads, that's great. It's a little bit easier to do, but most of the time you end up fixing both components, because if you have a bad rotor and you just change out the pads, those new pads are going to wear down very quickly. Similarly, if you change out a new rotor and leave the old pads, that new rotor is going to wear down quickly too. So by fixing both components, you have a much better repair of that valve barrier mechanism.